want you to think about the last time that a partner did something that genuinely hurt you. And then I want you to think about how many chances you gave them after that. Because I bet most of you gave them multiple opportunities to get it right. You had a conversation, you forgave them, maybe it even happened 2 or 3 more times before you finally walked away. And now I want you to think about the last time that a friend did something that bothered you. And I want you to be honest about how fast you were to cut them off or let the friendship die or just like stop answering their text messages. See, I think that we have the double standard completely backwards because we've been taught that romantic relationships are worth fighting for and friendships are replaceable. And the result is that we will let a partner do us so damn dirty multiple times and then we stay with them and call it loyalty, but then a friend will cancel on us twice and we cut them off. I think the conversation of toxic friendships has to start there because we have got to stop applying completely separate rule books to people in our life based on whether or not we're sleeping with them. By the end of this episode, you are going to understand what actually makes a friendship toxic. Not just inconvenient or like imperfect, actually toxic. And you're gonna have a way to audit all of the friendships in your life right now so that you can figure out which ones are actually worth fighting for and which ones you can actually let go. Before we get into it, if you don't know me, my name's Haley. I'm on a mission to become my best self. I'm obsessed with all things healing, fitness, and productivity, and this is Healing with Hale. In this season, we are focused on escaping toxic environments. All episodes are geared towards helping you find your way out of whatever toxic shit you might be in right now. And sometimes the most toxic environment around you is not a relationship, it's a friendship. So let's fix that. We are going to cover this in 3 parts. First is the double standard and why I think we need to flip-flop it. Then the signs that indicate that a friendship is actually genuinely toxic. And then what we're going to do about this once you actually see it all clearly. So when it comes to friends versus relationships, I think what is actually happening is that we hold our friends to a higher standard than we hold our relationships to. And that means that the second that a friend does something that disappoints us, we're much quicker to just pull back and to decide that that friendship is not worth it. Meanwhile, we are giving our romantic partners chance after chance after chance for behavior that is probably so much worse than anything our friends could ever do. And I think a part of this comes from what we're taught about like romantic love, that it's like this thing worth sacrificing for, that you should work through it and stay in it even when it's hard. And we don't apply that same logic to platonic love. And so friendships end over things that would survive relationships, and then relationships survive things that should absolutely have been ended years ago. So before we get into the signs, I do want to make something clear. A friend having like a bad season of life is not necessarily a toxic friend. A friend making one mistake might not be a toxic friend. A friend who's going through something hard and is showing up inconsistently is not a toxic friend. And I constantly hear the phrase, "You don't owe anyone anything." And while I think there are situations where that's true, I don't think it applies to people you have been friends with for an extended period of time. I don't think you should just be like, they missed one dinner that we had, so I'm cutting them off because I don't owe them anything. I just don't think that's true. Now, do I think that it's totally fair and valid to like not be friends with someone if you really feel like this is not my person? Absolutely. Yeah, that's totally fine. But it's the way that some people will go to great lengths to be like, I'm cutting you off because you're toxic, or like, I'm not talking to that person anymore because they're such a toxic person, and telling everybody else about it. There's just no need for that, because all that's doing is causing you to continuously cut people off and then wonder why you feel lonely all the time. So the signs that we're going to talk about are things that are consistent patterns over time, not one-time incidents. And that distinction is very important. Sign number 1 is that they are never genuinely happy for you. Like every time something good happens for you, they might say congratulations, but there's always some kind of redirect or some kind of underlying tone behind what they say. When you're telling them good news, you might consistently feel like you have to make your good news smaller, otherwise you're scared that they're going to be offended or upset. And sometimes you might even notice that they might make your wins about themselves. Like you might say that something exciting happened, and then 30 seconds later they're like, oh my god, yeah, actually something really good happened to me too. And not in a way of like, oh, we're both sharing mutual things. They are completely overshadowing your moment and never circling back to talk about it with you. And again, you're gonna notice this especially if it's a pattern of them not being able to hold that space for you. Sign number 2 is that they are constantly talking about other people, which means they are also talking about you. If a friend is always filling you in on what other people said about you, you can almost guarantee that they are actually joining in on that conversation when they're not around you. Also, if they're always bringing up other people's drama, other people's relationships, other people's family things, like things that they probably shouldn't be sharing, you can almost guarantee that they are telling other people all of those same things that you have shared with them. I remember when I was friends with my ex-best friend, and she would constantly be like, oh yeah, this person like said this and this and this about you, like, oh my god, I couldn't believe what this person said about you. And I would constantly be like, okay, but like, what did you say? Like, why would you hear that and not say anything? And like, Towards the end of our friendship, I remember asking her like, oh, well, like, what did you say to that? And she was just like, I didn't want to get involved. I didn't want to start something. So I just didn't say anything, which is like code for, oh, I talked so much shit about you, but I obviously can't tell you that. Sign number 3 is the effort is probably very one-sided. And this is one of the easiest ones to see in retrospect, because you can look back and be like, am I the one that's texting first? Am I the one that's making all of the plans? Am I the one who's constantly checking in after something happened? Because in a toxic friendship, there's almost always one person who's doing the majority of the work. And oftentimes that person is like convincing themselves that it's actually like totally fine. It's balanced. So you have to ask yourself, if you stopped initiating completely, what would happen? Sign number 4 is they make you feel like you can't have a life outside of them. And this one doesn't always look controlling, I think, especially in friendships, because like as women especially, we are so used to like doing things together, but it probably starts with a lot of guilt trips. So like, oh, you went there without me? And it's one thing if they're saying this to a place that they've mentioned multiple times that they want it to go. But if it's like you went to the grocery store and they're like, you went to the grocery store without me? Or if you mention a new friend that they haven't met, or a friend that you have outside of them, they might get really weird about it and be like, oh, wow, I hope you had so much fun. Or you might even notice a guilt trip when you're busy and like not able to do something and they're making you feel bad for it. And if you've been friends with someone for a long time and you notice that you're kind of like editing the stories that you tell them, like you're leaving out the fact that you went somewhere with somebody else, or like not telling them that you went to brunch with your other friend, like you need to actually ask yourself, why am I doing this? And if the answer is anywhere in the realm of like, they're gonna get mad if I tell them about my other friend, or they're gonna get mad that I did this with somebody else, that's probably a really good sign that this is a toxic friendship. Because in a real friendship, you should not feel like you are walking on eggshells constantly. Sign number 4, I think, maybe 5, I don't know. They only show up for the fun part. Because a good friend will show up even when times are hard. Like even when you're going through something, even when it's not easy to be there for you, they're still gonna show up. A toxic friend is often so much fun when life is going great and like easy, and then suddenly when you're going through something, they're very busy, they're distant, they don't even try to check in. And what makes this one tricky is that in those good times, like when everything is going smooth and easy, you're like, oh my god, this person is so much fun, I love them so much. And it's only when you zoom out and look at the entire picture that you can actually start to realize like, oh, they've actually never been there for me when I actually needed somebody. And the last sign is that they take zero accountability. Ever. And this actually crosses over from the narcissist episode, but it is like a little bit different in a friendship sense. It might be like the disagreements always end up in apologizing or never being able to actually address anything because they just don't even want to hear it. Like they're not capable of taking accountability for something. Or they get so hurt by the fact that you're bringing something up to them that you then end up like consoling them on the fact that you hurt their feelings by bringing up something that they did to hurt you. And truthfully, a friendship where you can't bring something up to somebody without it becoming a bigger problem is just not a safe friendship. Okay, so what do we do about all of this? And before we get into it, if you've been enjoying this season or this episode specifically, please follow along because each episode is kind of building on the last one and I don't want you to miss anything. Step number 1 is to do a friendship audit. I want you to pick your 3 closest friendships, and not the ones that are the easiest to evaluate. I mean the people who are genuinely the absolute closest to you, and answer the following 4 questions for each one. Do I feel better or worse after spending time with this person? Can I be honest with them without it becoming a whole situation? Is the effort coming from both of us? Have I ever felt dismissed, controlled, or like I was the punchline? And you want to write the answers down, not just answer them in your head, because something about putting it on paper makes it a lot harder to rationalize things, and you don't even have to do anything with the answers. The point is to just see the friendships clearly, like actually written out. Step number 2 is to apply the relationship standard. So first, for any friendship where the answers are mostly bad, you want to ask yourself, if a partner had done this consistently, would I still be with them? And if the answer is no, that's a pretty good indicator that you probably shouldn't be friends with this person. And secondly, for any friendship that you've been thinking about ending or pulling back from, ask yourself, is this a pattern or is it just like a one-off incident? Because if a good friend did one thing that hurt you, you should probably ask yourself whether or not you would give a partner grace in that situation, and if so, you should probably extend it to your friend. The goal is the same standard across the board, not one that's higher for friendships and lower for relationships or vice versa, because the sooner you stop applying a different rule book to every single person in your life, the clearer all of the relationships around you are going to get. Because we spend so much time worrying about how to protect ourselves in romantic relationships and almost no time asking ourselves the same questions about the people that we consider to be our closest friends. And a toxic friendship can do just as much damage as a toxic relationship. Honestly, sometimes even more, because I think a lot of us don't examine friendships at all because we don't consider them as important as relationships. Your task for this week is, after you've done that friendship audit, if you notice that there's somebody that you probably should pour a little bit more into because they're not actually a toxic person, try to reach out to them, make some plans with them. And vice versa, if you see somebody that you're like, ooh, I actually really think I should end things with this person, start taking the steps to do so. Because you're not trying to blow anything up, you are just trying to see clearly. If this episode made you think of a specific thing that a friend has done to you, please comment below what the sign was that you kept explaining away, because it might help somebody else who's in the same situation. Until next time, be kind to your mind, to your body, and to others, and happy healing.